Hi, I'm Cynthia Carr. I'm at City Lights bookstore in San Francisco, and I'm reading a passage from Close to the Knives by David Wojnarowicz. This book was challenged by the National Endowment for the Arts and by various right-wing politicians. In the autumn of '89, photographer Nan Golden asked David to write something for a show she was curating about AIDS, and this show is called Witnesses Against Our Vanishing. The essay he wrote, called Postcards from America, X-Rays from Hell, was really about mortality, because he had been diagnosed at that point. And it's filled with a kind of angry desperation. He decided to name some of the villains in this essay, specifically Senator Jesse Helms, Congressman William Dannemeyer. They had done everything in their power to prevent a single government dollar from going to AIDS research, AIDS treatment, or AIDS prevention. And then he also named Cardinal O'Connor, who, a sort of local New York villain. He had preached against condom use and fought to stop all sex education and AIDS education in the New York schools. So this is a passage, a section from Postcards from America, X-Rays from Hell. I scratched my head at the hysteria surrounding the actions of the repulsive senator from Zombieland, Jesse Helms, who has been trying to dismantle the NEA for supporting the work of Andre Serrano and Robert Mapplethorpe. Although the anger sparked within the arts community is certainly justified and will hopefully grow stronger, the actions by Helms and D'Amato only follow standards that have been formed and implemented by the arts community itself. The major museums in New York, not to mention museums around the country, are just as guilty of this kind of selective cultural support and denial. It is a standard practice to make invisible any kind of sexual imaging other than white, straight, male erotic fantasies. Sex in America long ago slid into a small set of generic symbols. Mention the word sex and the general public appears to only imagine a couple of heterosexual positions on a bed. There are actual laws in parts of this country forbidding anything else, even between consenting adults. So people have found it necessary to define their sexuality in images, in photographs, and drawings and movies in order to not disappear. Collectors have, for the most part, failed to support work that defines a particular person's sexuality, except for a few examples, such as Mapplethorpe, and thus have perpetuated the invisibility of the myriad possibilities of sexual activity. The collector's influence on what the museum shows continues this process secretly with behind-the-scenes manipulations of curators and money. Jesse Helms, at the very least, makes public his attacks on freedom. The collectors and museums responsible for censorship make theirs at elegant private parties or from the confines of their self-created closets. It doesn't stop at images. In a recent review of a novel in the New York Times Book Review, a reviewer took outrage at the novelist's descriptions of promiscuity, saying, quote, "In this age of AIDS, the writer should show more restraint. Not only do we have to contend with bonehead newscasters and conservative members of the medical profession telling us to just say no to sexuality itself, rather than talk about safer sex possibilities, but we have people from the thought police spilling out from the ranks with admonitions that we shouldn't think about anything other than monogamous or safer sex. I'm beginning to believe that one of the last frontiers left for radical gesture is the imagination. At least in my ungoverned imagination, I can fuck somebody without a rubber, or I can, in the privacy of my own skull, douse Helms with a bucket of gasoline and set his putrid ass on fire, or throw Congressman William Dannemeyer off the Empire State Building. These fantasies give me distance from my outrage for a few seconds. They give me momentary comfort. Sexuality defined in images gives me comfort in a hostile world. They give me strength. I have always loved my anonymity, and therein lies a contradiction, because I also find comfort in seeing representations of my private experiences in the public environment. They need not be representations of my experiences. They can be the experience of and by others that merely come close to my own, or else disrupt the generic representations that have come to be the norm in the various medias outside my door. I find that when I witness diverse representations of reality on a gallery wall, or in a book or a movie or in the spoken word or performance, that the larger the range of representations, the more I feel there is room in the environment for my existence, that not the entire environment is hostile. To make the private into something public is an action that has terrific repercussions in the pre-invented world. The government has the job of maintaining the day-to-day illusion of the one tribe nation. Each public disclosure of a private reality becomes something of a magnet that can attract others with a similar frame of reference. Thus, each public disclosure of a fragment of private reality serves as a dismantling tool against the illusion of a one-tribe nation. It lifts the curtains for a brief peek and reveals the probable existence of literally millions of tribes. The term general public disintegrates. What happens next is the possibility of an X-ray of civilization, an examination of its foundations, to turn our private grief for the loss of friends, family, lovers, and strangers into something public, would serve as another powerful dismantling tool. It would dispel the notion that this virus has a sexual orientation or a moral code. It would nullify the belief that the government and medical community has done very much to ease the spread or advancement of this disease. One of the first steps in making the private grief public is the ritual of memorials. I have loved the way memorials take the absence of a human being and make them somehow physical with the use of sound. I have attended a number of memorials in the last 5 years, and at the last one I attended, I found myself suddenly experiencing something akin to rage. I realized halfway through the event that I had witnessed a good number of the same people participating in other previous memorials. What made me angry was realizing that the memorial had little reverberation outside the room it was held in. A TV commercial for handy wipes had a higher impact on the society at large. I got up and left because I didn't think I could control my urge to scream.